The Special Investigating Unit says it has saved the Gauteng Department of Health over 126 million rand in illegal PPE contracts. Now, the unit declared that millions held in the bank accounts of 20 companies and entities be forfeited to the state. On Thursday, Judge Billy Motley delivered a judgment ordering companies that received funds from the Health Department to pay back the money. Let's unpack the story for you. We're joined by Kaizer Kganyago. He is the spokesperson for the Special Investigating Unit. Kaizer, good morning. Thanks very much once again for your time this morning. I think before we kick off our discussion, I just want you to clarify there are two figures mentioned in this report. There's a figure of 126 million rand that's been recovered. There's another figure of 139 million rand recovered in Gauteng. Give us some clarity on those numbers, please.
Thank you very much, Michelle, and to the viewers. The contract that we are referring to is the contract that was given to Ledla after the so-called withdrawal of Royal Bata, and that contract was valued at 139 million. And that 139 million, 39 million was already paid to Ledla Construction, and that 39 million is the one that was then given to many other people, which was almost about 39 to 40 companies. And we then, in some time last year, went to the tribunal and we freezed all of those accounts. That's what we are talking about. Therefore, the 126 million that we are referring to is the 100 million that was supposed to have been paid to Ledla, which has not been paid, plus the 10 million that was recovered in the judgment yesterday, plus the 16.5 million that was recovered in the same case in the judgment that was done on the 10th of December. Therefore, all of those figures together gives us the 126 million that we're talking about, and the 139 is the total cost of the contract.
Okay. I want to hone in on this issue about Ledla Construction and Royal Bata. So that contract was initially awarded to Royal Bata. And at the time, given all of the speculation around the relationship between Royal Bata and the health MEC in the province, Bandile Masuku, Royal Bata then said they would step away from the deal. Now, according to what the SIU says, they actually didn't step away from the deal. They gave the contract to this company that we now know is called Ledla. Is that correct, Kaizer?
But definitely, there was this indication that Royal Bata has withdrawn from the tender procurement, and we found out later that the contract was given to Ledla, even though Ledla was not even in the initial list of companies that were dealing with this matter at the time. Therefore, that is why the whole contract has now been set aside. Hence, even the 100 million that was still outstanding will not be paid because now the contract has been set aside. But that is true. We have found that the Ledla Construction was now a proxy for Royal Bata.
To add to that 39 million rand that was paid out from this contract was paid to Ledla, and that company then paid it into the accounts of some 40 other entities. As the SIU, what do you read into that kind of transaction from a company like Ledla? Is it a way of trying to throw institutions like the SIU off the scent of the money? Why else would you transfer that money into 40 other entities?
No, definitely it was a way of trying to make sure that the money disappear quickly. But fortunately, we were watching the money and we were able to work with the Financial Intelligence Center to then freeze all of those accounts, and all of those people who had that money had to come to court to explain why the money should not be forfeited to the state. Some of the companies, as you might have seen, they managed to explain themselves, and that money was released for them to use. But there are many others to the value of about over 26 million were not able to explain themselves. And you'll remember, for example, in one of the companies got the money from Letla. It's a company called K Structural Engineering, I think it's called. And that is the company that is owned by the cousin of the former the presidential spokesperson. And that company got almost about 16 million of that amount, and it kept about 8 million of that amount, and the rest was also given to other companies. And that was a clear indication that money, they were trying to hide the money into different people's accounts.
Kaizer, at what stage do we go from this is a dodgy deal, the money is being recovered, to this is how we are going to hold these people to account?
Yes, you will understand that as the SIU, we have got, we do referrals. Therefore, at this present moment, we were dealing with the money that was moving around because it was urgent for us to do so. But the investigation into the Gauteng PPEs still continues. Therefore, once we get to a point where we have finalized the investigation, we'll be in a position to then do referrals of individuals who are implicated to the NPA for the NPA to take it further. But you might have seen with this particular contract that we have already seen that some of the officials needed to be disciplined. And we then did those referrals. We did a referral on the head of department in the Department of Health, who ultimately resigned. We wanted him to be disciplined. We did the same with the CFO, and we did the same with the SCM manager. The SCM manager is now in the process of being disciplined. The CFO has resigned. The head of department has resigned. Therefore, the issue of consequence management is very important. In as much as we get the money back through the tribunal, we also do referrals for disciplinary action and referrals where we find criminality to the NPA. And all of those things are still going to happen. Therefore, it's a three-pronged kind of a strategy.
I mean, these numbers are shocking, Kaizer. This 126 million rand that's been saved by the SIU, that's just in Gauteng. Later today, you're announcing the outcomes of other PPE contracts around the country. Can you give us a sense, before that briefing later today, of what the numbers might look like nationally?
Unfortunately, you'll have to wait, but having to go back a little bit to say the 126 million is not even just in Gauteng, it's one contract.
It's only
in
one
Gauteng.
contract in
There
Gauteng.
are still more than 100 contracts that we are looking into in Gauteng. Therefore, the money will still be much more than what we might end up saving. But at the moment, we just have to wait for the head of the Special Investigating Unit at 11 o'clock to give the outcome, because today what we are going to be doing is to give reports on the concluded investigations, because we cannot, there are contracts or investigations that we've concluded throughout the country, and we need to give that to the public so that they know what is happening throughout the country. And unfortunately, I can't give those figures now. The boss will do that later today.
Look, I think it's fair to say we can speculate that it's going to run into the hundreds of millions of rand. You're talking about one contract in Gauteng, and there are, you said, more than 100 contracts in Gauteng that still need to be investigated. Kaizer, in terms of, you know, what this says about our processes, our tender processes in our country, how does the SIU, in terms of its probes, what are the discussions that take place with the institutions in government to say, you know, this is where this PPE tender process went completely wrong. This is how we prevent it from happening again?
Yeah, when we do investigations in each and every government institution, we also look at the processes. We don't only say, these are the people that we have found and so on. We also go into the details of what happened, where are the loopholes, what can be done? And we do that as a way of preventative, it's a preventative measure to make sure that in future these things happen. But you must remember, Michelle, that some of these things are not done because there are no systems. They are done even with the systems there because people do not respect the PFMA and the Municipal Finance Management Act. people do not respect even directives that are given by the Treasury in terms of pricing and so on. They do them deliberately, and they want to make sure that they gain as much as possible. Therefore, we're still going to find that, but we are doing a lot of preventative, systematic information that we give to them to say, these are the systematic problems that we have found, and we want you to look at them, change here, change there, and we hope that they will do that.
Yeah, you and me both, and the rest of the country. Kaizer Kganyago, thanks very much this morning for your time on the AM report. We look forward to that briefing at 11 o'clock this morning. He is the spokesperson for the SIU, and of course we're expecting to get more detail on those contracts around the country at 11 o'clock for that briefing. I mean, let's just hone in on the one thing that came out of that interview. That's one contract in Gauteng where 126 million rand will be recovered because the contract is deemed to be illegal, essentially. He says there are about 100 other contracts that need to be investigated in Gauteng.
Yeah. I shudder at the thought of the scale of this, and we're going to get an idea, I think for the first time since the outbreak actually, of how widespread some of this PPE irregularity is concerned, probably just a euphemism as well. And it's important because we're entering into a new phase of our fight against the pandemic in the form of the procurement of vaccines. How do we begin the process of trusting that this too will go ahead in the ways that it should, when already the evidence is suggesting that it probably won't?
Sure.